Basketball legend Kobe Bryant, a 5-time NBA champion, an 18-time NBA All-Star, and a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, died along with his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, and 7 others in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California, on January 26, 2020, reportedly due to the pilot's decision to fly in foggy conditions. The immediate reaction throughout the world was shock. The next question was, how? How did a seemingly regular trip to a youth basketball game end in tragedy? Was it truly the pilot's fault? How could anything like this have happened? Stay tuned till the end to find out all the answers. At 8:45 a.m., it was a bleak and cloudy morning when Ara Zobayan, a skilled pilot of a Sikorsky S-76B, checked his flight planning app at John Wayne International Airport. Unfortunately, the app didn't show good news. A thick layer of clouds covered the city, and the visibility was so poor that large parts of the region were unflyable. This was a major problem since Zobayan's employer, Island Express Helicopters, had been hired by OC Helicopters to fly Kobe Bryant and 7 of his companions to Camarillo Airport, which was 80 miles away on the coast. The mission was critical to Zobayan, as Island Express was a small operation that ran on thin margins and relied heavily on VIP custom charter flights for high-net-worth individuals like Bryant. As a regular client of Island Express, Bryant was the company's pride and joy. According to former Island Express pilot Kurt Dietz, keeping him happy was their top priority. That meant making sure he got where he wanted to go, even on a gloomy day like this one. However, the helicopter was only licensed to fly under visual flight rules, which meant that the pilot had to be able to see the ground at all times. Despite the challenges, Zobayan was determined to complete the mission and get Bryant and his companions to their destination safely. As Rick Webb, the owner of OC Helicopters, arrived to help with the boarding of Kobe Bryant and his companions, he was met with a weather map that spelled out trouble. The direct route to Camarillo was a no-go, with red marks indicating poor visibility, but pilot Ara Zobayan was determined to get his passengers there. He had a plan: to stay inland and east of downtown Los Angeles, cutting across the San Fernando Valley and arriving from the east. It wasn't ideal, but it could work. As with any flight, safety was a top priority. Island Express had a system in place to ensure their pilots stayed within conservative safety parameters, called the Flight Risk Analysis Tool. This electronic checklist had 69 items that would tally up a score indicating the level of risk. If the score totaled higher than 45, then the pilot could not fly without first consulting management. But Zobayan was confident he could handle it, and completing the mission was important to him and Island Express, which was operating on thin margins. After all, keeping Kobe Bryant happy was the company's top priority, and he was their pride and joy. At 9 a.m., the excitement was palpable as Kobe Bryant and his group, clad in their sleek black Mamba Sports Academy tracksuits, arrived at the John Wayne International Airport. The basketball superstar was on his way to a tournament with his daughter and her teammates, all eager to showcase their skills on the court. The charter company, Island Express Helicopters, had been entrusted with getting them to Camarillo, 80 miles away on the coast. But with a blanket of clouds and a patchy haze covering the city, the journey was anything but certain. As the passengers boarded the twin-engine Sikorsky S-76B, their anticipation mounted. The helicopter's interior was luxurious, with polished mahogany veneer, gold accents, and plush leather upholstery. Bryant settled into his favorite window seat on the left, facing forward, while the rest of the group strapped in behind him. The doors were latched shut and the helicopter's rotors began to spin, ready to take off. Hey, are you feeling the adrenaline rush from this story? Don't worry, I won't ask you to hold it for too long. But if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more heartfelt content and tributes like this. Thanks for tuning in, and let's keep going with this captivating story. As the helicopter climbed higher into the sky, the noise from the twin turbines grew louder, and the view outside the window was a hazy, mystical blur. But Captain Ara Zobayan knew this terrain like the back of his hand. He had spent years flying over the urban sprawl of Southern California, and the landmarks below emerged from the haze as if by magic. The golf course in Fountain Valley, the runways at Los Alamitos Airfield, the Coyote Creek Flood Control Channel, the interchanges of the 605, and the sprawling Union Pacific Rail Yard in East LA all came into view. Zobayan wasn't just a pilot. He was an expert. He had moved to the United States as a teenager and worked hard to save enough money to take flying lessons while working as a parking lot attendant. He got his helicopter pilot's license in 2001 and worked as a flight instructor, accruing hours of flying time. By 2011, he was working for Island Express and had become well known for flying celebrities like Kylie Jenner and Kawhi Leonard. But today, the weather was far from clear. The fog was thick and visibility was low. Even so, Zobayan believed he had a plan to safely navigate the helicopter to its destination. Flying in Los Angeles is like navigating a maze of invisible lines that divide the airspace into a complex three-dimensional puzzle. It's easy to make a wrong turn and end up in the wrong neighborhood. And for Zobayan, a mistake he made years ago near LAX had already put him on the FAA's radar. But on this fateful day, as the Sikorsky roared into the hazy morning sky, the seasoned pilot surely had no idea that his next wrong turn would lead to a tragedy that would rock the basketball world and beyond. At 9:20 a.m., the helicopter soared past Dodger Stadium and followed the winding LA River towards the Santa Monica Mountains. But there were two obstacles in their way. The first was the physical wall of the mountains, and the second was the strict regulations of Burbank Airport's controlled airspace. Zobayan requested permission to enter but was denied due to low visibility. However, he had a workaround, requesting a special VFR to fly through despite the conditions. But he had to wait for a SkyWest flight to land first. So he circled above the homes in Glendale, banking left and right in a series of figure eights, waiting for his chance to proceed. At 9:32 a.m., Zobayan had finally received permission to enter Burbank's airspace after circling for 11 long minutes. However, his troubles were far from over. The entire area was blanketed with an overcast layer, making visibility a real challenge. As he headed north past Van Nuys, he realized he would have to make a long detour around the San Fernando Valley due to departing traffic. This added to the delay and was not good news for the passengers waiting to reach Camarillo. The real problem, though, lies ahead. Zobayan needed to fly over the low pass at Calabasas, but with the haze and cloud cover, he couldn't see if it was safe to do so. The pass was invisible behind 10 miles of intervening haze, and there was no guarantee that the cloud cover would remain the same at the pass. It was a risky move, and Zobayan knew it. If the fog was too thick, he would have to turn back, retrace his route to Van Nuys, and arrange for ground transportation to get the passengers to Thousand Oaks. Alternatively, he could land and wait for the sun to burn off the fog, but time was ticking, and Zobayan had to make a decision. At 9:40 a.m., Zobayan requested a flight following from SoCal Approach for real-time weather and traffic updates as he headed toward Camarillo. But as he flew low among the hilltops, radar and radio transmissions became difficult. SoCal Approach warned him of the impending loss of contact, but Zobayan kept his fingers crossed. Using the Ventura Freeway as his guide, Zobayan turned west towards Camarillo. He flew past the scenic hillsides dotted with olive-green flora after the winter rains, and landmarks like the Commons at Calabasas and Calabasas Park Estates. With just 24 miles left to Camarillo, Zobayan was only 9 minutes away from his destination, but little did he know, his journey would be cut short by unforeseen circumstances. Zobayan was determined to make it through the cloud layer, even as the ground beneath him rose higher and the clouds grew more indistinct. He had a plan. If he found himself inside a cloud, he would keep flying straight and climb straight up through the layer. It was a risky move, but he had done it before. As he approached the pass, the hills began to close in on either side, creating the feeling of a tunnel. He was cutting it close, but he could see light ahead. If he could just make it past the top of the pass, he could descend and put some distance between the aircraft and the ground. He pushed the Sikorsky to 150 miles per hour and zoomed over the crest of the pass, feeling relieved that he had made it. At 9 hours, 44 minutes and 30 seconds a.m., as the helicopter entered a low-hanging cloud, everything outside turned grayish-white. Zobayan's visibility was gone, and he had to rely on the aircraft's instruments to fly. He began to climb to get above the clouds and find a gap to descend through. He radioed SoCal Approach, making it sound like he had found a legal hole to climb through. But in reality, he was committed to his escape plan, and nobody would ever know what he had done. A new controller came on the frequency, and Zobayan calmly responded that he was just west of Van Nuys. As Zobayan ascended through the clouds, he began to fly by hand and gradually banked the helicopter to the left. The new controller couldn't find him on the radar and asked him to light up his tracking marker. Zobayan failed to stay focused on his artificial horizon, and the helicopter started leaning to the left, making his situation worse when he tried to correct it. The controller asked for his intentions just as Zobayan climbed 1,000 feet, and he responded that they were climbing to 4,000 feet. Despite being close to the top of the clouds, the danger was far from over. At 9:48 a.m., the helicopter was plummeting out of control, hurtling towards the earth with ever-increasing speed. Zobayan had lost his bearings completely and couldn't tell which way was up or down. His instruments were telling him one thing, but his inner ear was insisting on something entirely different. The controller's voice cracked over the radio. "And then what are you going to do when you get to altitude?" No answer. Two mountain bikers above the Las Virgenes Municipal Water District facility heard the ominous sound of the chopper's rotors getting louder and louder. Suddenly, a blue and white helicopter emerged from the clouds, rolling to the left and revealing its belly. It hurtled past them at a terrifying speed of 185 miles per hour, crashing into the hillside below. The bikers rushed to the site of the crash, their hearts pounding in their chests as they saw the orange flames licking over the debris. The twisted metal and scattered parts of the helicopter were all that remained. The operations manager at OC Helicopters frantically texted Zobayan's limo driver asking if they had landed yet. The response came back, "Not yet." As the minutes ticked by, panic set in. Zobayan wasn't responding to any calls or radio messages. The company's emergency response manual was pulled out, and the checklist was run. Another helicopter was dispatched to try and locate Zobayan's last known position, but it was too late. As firefighters scrambled up the hillside to the crash site, they knew there was no hope of saving anyone. The helicopter was completely destroyed, and there were no signs of life. Within moments, the horrific news spread. Zobayan and all 8 passengers on board had perished in the crash. The tragedy had unfolded in a matter of minutes, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a sense of shock and disbelief in its wake. As the news broke, the world mourned the tragic loss of a true legend, Kobe Bryant. The basketball icon, along with 8 others, perished in a devastating helicopter crash in California. The crash site was a scene of utter devastation, but investigators worked tirelessly to ensure that all the remains were recovered. They combed through the wreckage with drone technology, and with the delicate touch of human hands, they painstakingly pieced together the puzzle of what had happened. It was a harrowing task, but they eventually recovered the remains of all 9 victims. 3 bodies were found on Sunday afternoon, but it took another day of intense searching to locate the remaining 6. In the days that followed, the world came together to mourn the loss of Kobe Bryant and the other victims of the crash. 4 of them were publicly identified through fingerprints, but the names of all 9 have been released by family and friends. The legacy of Kobe Bryant will live on forever, not just in the hearts of basketball fans, but in the hearts of all those whose lives he touched. He was an inspiration, a role model, and a true legend. His loss is felt deeply by all those who knew and loved him.